Engineers tempting dare. Can a simple woman unlock more than just an engine? The breakdown. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Carter's auto repair, where Charlotte wiped grease from her hands with a familiar, practiced motion. The shop smelled of motor oil and metal, a scent that had become as comforting as home itself. She'd been running diagnostics on Mrs. Henderson's sedan when she heard it, the deep, throaty purr of an engine that didn't belong in this neighborhood. Charlotte stepped outside, squinting against the glare, and froze. A sleek, midnight blue sports car rolled into her lot, its design so futuristic it looked like it had driven straight out of a science fiction film. The vehicle came to a stop with an electronic whir that made her mechanic's heart skip a beat. The driver's door lifted upward, and out stepped a man who matched the car's sophistication. Tall, dressed in an expensive charcoal suit with the tie loosened just enough to suggest casual confidence, he had the kind of smile that probably opened doors and melted hearts with equal efficiency. "Please tell me you're open," he said, his voice smooth with just a hint of desperation. Charlotte crossed her arms, suddenly aware of the grease stains on her coveralls. "Depends on what's wrong. That thing looks like it needs a spaceship mechanic, not a small-town shop." His smile widened. "You're exactly what I need. I'm Ethan Williams, and this beauty just died on me 3 miles back. Had to get her towed here." Charlotte shook his hand briefly, feeling the calluses on her palm against his smooth skin. "Charlotte Carter. Let me guess. Custom built? Prototype? You know your cars." Ethan's eyes lit with genuine interest. "It's a hybrid system I designed myself. Combines traditional combustion with an experimental electric drive. Theoretically, it shouldn't break down at all." Theoretically. Charlotte walked around the vehicle, her professional curiosity overriding her intimidation. She ran her fingers along the carbon fiber panels, noting the seamless integration of technology. Everything breaks down eventually. That's the first rule of mechanics. And the second rule? She looked up, catching his gaze. "There's always a reason. Let me pop the hood." Ethan pressed something on his key fob, and the front end lifted with a hydraulic hiss. Charlotte leaned in, her eyes widening. The engine bay was a masterpiece of engineering. Components she'd never seen before, wired with precision that bordered on artistry. But there, among the perfection, she spotted something odd. "When did you last service this?" 2 weeks ago. My company's tech team handles all maintenance." Charlotte pointed to a connection point where 2 systems merged. "See this? Your traditional and electric systems aren't communicating properly. It's like trying to speak 2 languages without a translator." He looked up skeptically. "Your tech team missed something pretty basic." Ethan moved closer, peering at where she pointed. He smelled like expensive cologne and ambition. "That's impossible. These guys are the best in the industry." "Then maybe the best missed what only someone who works with their hands every day would catch." Charlotte straightened, wiping her brow. "I can fix it, but it'll take time to diagnose fully. This isn't your average tune-up." Ethan studied her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. The cocky engineer facade cracked slightly, revealing genuine intrigue. "How long?" "Give me until tomorrow. I'll need to run full diagnostics, check every integration point." "I'll pay double your usual rate." Charlotte bristled. "I don't need charity. I charge fair prices for good work." "It's not charity. It's appreciation for someone who actually sees what's wrong instead of just running computer scans." He leaned against the car, suddenly more relaxed. "Tell you what, I'll make this interesting. If you can solve what my entire tech team couldn't, I'll admit that all my fancy engineering education missed something important. And if I can't?" His smile turned playful. "Then you admit that some problems are too complex for simple solutions." Charlotte felt her competitive nature flare. "You're on, Mr. Williams. But I should warn you, I've never met an engine I couldn't figure out." "Ethan. Call me Ethan. And Charlotte, something tells me you're full of surprises." As he arranged for a ride back to his office, Charlotte found herself watching him leave, her heart beating slightly faster than usual. She turned back to the car, running her hand along its smooth surface. This wasn't just about fixing an engine anymore. It was about proving something. To him, yes, but maybe also to herself. She grabbed her diagnostic equipment, already making mental notes. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough.
The challenge. Charlotte arrived at the shop before dawn, unable to sleep with the puzzle of Ethan's car occupying her mind. She'd spent half the night researching hybrid integration systems, filling notebook pages with diagrams and theories. The coffee maker gurgled as she rolled up the bay door, revealing the sports car gleaming under the fluorescent lights like a sleeping beast. She was elbow-deep in the engine compartment when she heard footsteps behind her. "Couldn't stay away?" Charlotte jumped, banging her head on the hood. She emerged, rubbing her scalp to find Ethan standing there in jeans and a fitted black t-shirt, holding 2 cups of coffee. Without the suit, he looked younger, more approachable, and somehow more dangerous to her equilibrium. "What are you doing here?" she asked, accepting the coffee he offered. "I couldn't sleep either." He set down a bag that smelled like fresh pastries. "Kept thinking about what you said, that my team missed something basic. It bothered me." "Good. Ego is healthy in small doses." Charlotte took a sip of coffee. "Perfectly made," she noted with annoyance. "But you'll just be in my way." Ethan's eyes glinted with amusement. "Actually, I thought I could help. I designed this system. I know every wire, every circuit. 2 heads are better than 1, right?" Charlotte considered sending him away, but found herself curious. "Fine, but in my shop, I'm in charge. Can you handle taking orders from a simple mechanic?" "There's nothing simple about you, Charlotte Carter." He rolled up his sleeves. "What do you need?" They worked in surprising harmony. Ethan explained the theoretical design while Charlotte pointed out practical flaws, places where elegant engineering met messy reality. As the morning progressed, their initial wariness evolved into a rhythm. Ethan handed her tools before she asked. Charlotte translated his technical jargon into mechanical truth. "Here's your problem," Charlotte announced around noon, her voice triumphant. She pointed to a sensor buried deep in the system. "This component is reading temperature fluctuations and shutting down the electric drive as a safety measure. But the readings are false. The sensor itself is faulty." He leaned in close, his shoulder brushing hers. "That's a $5,000 German-made sensor. It can't just fail." "Everything fails eventually, remember? Even $5,000 German engineering." Charlotte met his gaze, suddenly aware of how close they were. "You built redundancy into every system except this one. One sensor controls too much." He stared at the component, then at her, something like wonder crossing his face. "You're right. God, you're absolutely right. I was so focused on the integration that I made the monitoring system a single point of failure." He laughed, running a hand through his hair. "My team ran every computer simulation, but no one actually looked at it the way you just did." "That's because they trust the technology more than their instincts." Charlotte pulled back, needing distance from the intensity in his eyes. "I can replace the sensor, but you should redesign this section. Want me to sketch some ideas?" "Please." They moved to her cluttered office where Charlotte cleared space on her desk and began drawing. Ethan watched over her shoulder, occasionally pointing out constraints or possibilities. Their conversation flowed from technical to personal without either noticing the transition. "Why mechanics? You clearly have the mind for engineering. You could work anywhere." Charlotte's pencil paused. "My dad owned this shop, taught me everything. Not just about cars, but about honest work,
about building something real with your hands. When he got sick, I took over. He died 2 years ago. I'm sorry. She shrugged, though the gesture felt heavy. This shop is his legacy, mine too, I guess. It's not glamorous, but it matters. People depend on their vehicles. I help them. She looked at him. Why engineering? Why build cars that cost more than most people's houses? Ethan was quiet for a moment. Because I can, I suppose. Because people expect it from me. My family has always been about achievement, success, pushing boundaries. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I designed beautiful, complex things that maybe 100 people in the world will ever own. Your work actually touches people's lives daily. Are you saying you envy me? Charlotte couldn't hide her skepticism. Maybe I am. He picked up one of her sketches. There's something pure about what you do. Fix what's broken, send people on their way. I spend months on projects that might never see production, that exist mainly to impress investors in tech journals. Charlotte studied him, seeing past the confidence to something lonelier underneath. Sounds isolating. It can be. Ethan met her eyes. I had a serious relationship once, Lauren. She was in my world. Corporate lawyer, ambitious, always networking. We looked perfect together on paper. But when my last major project failed, when I wasn't the golden boy anymore, she left. Turned out she loved the success more than she loved me. The vulnerability in his admission made my chest tighten. That's brutal. It taught me that people in my world love what you represent more than who you are. He gestured around the shop. This, though, this is real. You're real, Charlotte. You don't care that I drive an expensive car or work for a prestigious company. You just care if I understand why a sensor failed. Charlotte felt heat rise to her cheeks. I should get that replacement sensor ordered. But Ethan caught her hand gently. Wait, I want to ask you something. Have dinner with me tonight. Not as client and mechanic, just as Ethan and Charlotte. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was a bad idea. They were from different worlds. He'd be gone as soon as his car was fixed. She'd be left with a broken heart and a small-town shop. But another part, a part she'd buried under work and responsibility, whispered yes. I don't think, she began. Don't think, just say yes. One dinner. I promise I'm more interesting than engine diagnostics. That's a high bar, she said, then surprised herself by smiling. Okay, one dinner, but nowhere fancy. I don't do fancy. Deal. His grin was boyish, genuine. There's a diner on Maple Street. Best pie in 3 counties, according to Yelp. Marco's. I know it well. Charlotte pulled her hand back, trying to ignore the tingling where he had touched her. 7 o'clock? Perfect. As Ethan left to handle some work calls, Charlotte returned to the car, her mind spinning. She told herself it was just dinner, just 2 people sharing a meal. But as she worked through the afternoon, replacing the faulty sensor and testing the systems, she couldn't stop replaying their conversation or the way he'd looked at her when he called her real. By the time 6 o'clock arrived, Charlotte was questioning everything. She stood in her small apartment above the shop, staring at her closet of practical clothes, wondering what you wore to dinner with a man who'd somehow seen past her grease-stained exterior to something she wasn't sure existed. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Still on for tonight? No pressure, but I'm hoping you don't stand me up. Charlotte smiled despite her nerves. She typed back, mechanics don't break their promises. See you at 7. She pulled out her one good pair of jeans and a simple blue blouse. As she got ready, Charlotte caught her reflection and barely recognized the hint of excitement in her eyes. She was walking into something potentially heartbreaking, but for the first time in years, she felt awake. Sometimes she thought the risk was worth taking.
The connection. Marco's Diner hadn't changed in 20 years.
red vinyl booths, checkered floor, and the perpetual smell of coffee and homemade pie. Charlotte arrived first, sliding into a corner booth and immediately regretting her decision. What was she doing? This wasn't her world, dating and romance. She should be home, reviewing parts catalogs, planning next week's schedule. Then Ethan walked in. He'd changed into dark jeans and a gray Henley that somehow looked both casual and expensive. His eyes found hers immediately, and the smile that spread across his face made her stomach flutter in a way she'd forgotten was possible. "You came," he said, sliding into the booth across from her. "Did you think I wouldn't? I hoped you would. There's a difference." He glanced at the menu, then set it aside. "Tell me what's good here." They ordered meatloaf for him, chicken pot pie for her, and a slice of Marco's famous apple pie to share. As they waited for their food, the conversation flowed with surprising ease. Ethan asked about her childhood growing up in the shop, and Charlotte found herself sharing stories she rarely told. Learning to change oil at 8, rebuilding her first engine at 12, the pride in her father's eyes when she diagnosed a problem that had stumped him. "He sounds like he was a great dad," Ethan said softly. "The best. He never treated me differently because I was a girl. Just taught me that hard work and integrity mattered more than anything else." Charlotte traced the rim of her water glass. "What about your family? You mentioned they valued achievement." Ethan's expression shifted, became more guarded. "My father is a venture capitalist. My mother runs a foundation. My older brother is a surgeon. Everyone in the Williams family excels at something prestigious." He paused as their food arrived. "I was the creative one, the one who took things apart and put them back together differently. They indulged it because I was successful at it." "Indulged?" Charlotte caught the word. "Like it was a phase?" "More like it was acceptable as long as it came with patents and profit margins." He cut into his meatloaf. "They were thrilled when I started at the tech company, less thrilled when I wanted to actually build things instead of just designing them for others to produce. Getting my hands dirty wasn't part of the plan." Charlotte heard the echo of her own struggles in his words, the weight of expectations, the pressure to be something specific. "Is that why you build custom cars? Because it's yours?" "Partially. Also because when I'm working on something mechanical, something real, I feel grounded, connected to something tangible. Does that sound crazy?" "No," she said quietly. "It sounds like you understand why I never left this town, why I stayed with the shop instead of going to college, getting some engineering degree. This work, it's honest, it's real. You fix something, and it works. You help someone, and they drive away grateful. There's no ambiguity. Unlike people, she agreed. They shared the apple pie, their forks occasionally competing for the same bite, which led to laughter that felt natural and unforced. Ethan told her about disastrous prototype tests, cars that wouldn't start, systems that failed spectacularly, the time he nearly set his workshop on fire. Charlotte countered with her own stories. The engine that shot oil across the bay, the customer who insisted his car was possessed, the time she accidentally locked herself in a trunk. "You didn't," Ethan said, laughing so hard he had to wipe his eyes. "I did. Had to call my assistant to let me out. Never lived it down." Charlotte grinned. "Mechanics aren't immune to stupid mistakes." "That's comforting to know." As the diner began to empty, neither of them moved to leave. The conversation shifted, became more intimate. Ethan talked about Lauren, about the loneliness of success, about wondering if anyone would want him without the achievements and accolades. Charlotte shared her own fears, that she'd become so absorbed in work that she'd forgotten how to be anything else, that maybe her father's legacy had become a comfortable cage. "Do you ever think about leaving, seeing what else is out there?" Ethan asked. "Sometimes. Late at night, when the shop is quiet and I'm doing paperwork, I wonder what my life would have been like if I'd made different choices. But then morning comes and someone needs their car fixed, and I remember why I stayed. This is where I belong." What if belonging isn't about a place? What if it's about finding people who see you for who you really are? Charlotte's breath caught.
Is that what you're looking for? Maybe I already found it. Ethan reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers. Charlotte, I know this is fast, and I know we barely know each other, but when I'm with you, I feel like I can breathe. Like I don't have to be engineer Ethan Williams with the impressive resume. I can just be me. Her heart was racing now. Ethan, Her phone rang, shattering the moment. Charlotte glanced at the screen, and her expression changed. I'm sorry, it's the shop's emergency line. I have to. Take it, he said immediately. Charlotte answered, her face growing more concerned with each second. Okay, I'll be right there. She hung up. There's been an accident on Route 7, multiple vehicles. They're calling in every mechanic in the county to help with towing and emergency repairs. I'll drive you, Ethan said, already standing. You don't have to. Charlotte, let me help. They arrived at the accident scene 15 minutes later, a pileup involving a semi-truck and 4 cars. Emergency lights painted everything in shades of red and blue. Charlotte grabbed her toolkit and dove in, assessing which vehicles could be safely moved, which needed specialized equipment. Ethan stayed by her side, following her instructions, helping her maneuver damaged vehicles. He didn't flinch at the twisted metal or the chaos. Instead, he watched Charlotte work with something like awe. The way she took command, made quick decisions, coordinated with other mechanics and first responders. Hours passed. By the time the last vehicle was cleared and the road reopened, it was nearly 2 in the morning. Charlotte's clothes were filthy, her hands scraped and bleeding from a sharp edge she'd misjudged. She leaned against his car, suddenly exhausted. Ethan appeared with a bottle of water and a first aid kit from his trunk. Without a word, he began cleaning the cuts on her hands, his touch gentle and careful. You were amazing tonight. The way you handled everything, you're extraordinary, Charlotte. She looked up at him, at this man from a different world who'd spent hours in the cold helping her, who was now bandaging her hands with the same precision he used on his engines. Something shifted inside her, a wall she didn't know she'd built, crumbling. Thank you, she whispered, for staying, for helping, for everything. Ethan cupped her face with both hands, his thumbs brushing her cheekbones. Can I kiss you? Charlotte nodded, unable to speak. When his lips met hers, it felt like coming home and setting off on an adventure. At the same time, familiar and thrilling, safe and terrifying. She kissed him back, tasting coffee and pie and possibility. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. Stay with me tonight. Not like that, he added quickly. Just, I don't want this day to end yet. Charlotte knew she should say no, should protect herself, maintain boundaries, remember that he'd eventually return to his high-tech world and she'd be left here. But his eyes held such honest hope, such genuine desire just to be near her that she found herself nodding. Okay, she said, but I'm driving. You've been up as long as I have. They went back to his hotel, a converted historic building downtown. In his suite, Charlotte borrowed a t-shirt while Ethan ordered late-night room service. They ended up on the couch, talking and laughing until the sky began to lighten, until Charlotte's head dropped onto his shoulder and her eyes finally closed. Ethan pulled a blanket over them both, pressing a kiss to her hair. He whispered without expecting an answer. Thank you for taking a chance on me. But Charlotte, half asleep, murmured back, Thank you for seeing me. As dawn broke over the town, they slept tangled together, two people from different worlds who had somehow found a connection neither had been looking for, but both desperately needed.
The crack. Charlotte woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the smell of fresh coffee. For a moment, panic seized her. She'd fallen asleep in Ethan's hotel room, spent the night in his arms. But the warmth of the memory quickly replaced the fear. Ethan emerged from the kitchenette, 2 mugs in hand. Morning. I didn't want to wake you, but I figured you'd need this. What time is it? Charlotte sat up, running fingers through her tangled hair. 8:30. I called your shop. Hope that's okay. Told them you'd been up all night with the accident. Charlotte accepted the coffee, touched by his thoughtfulness. "Thank you. I should get back, though. There's work." "I know. But first, I need to tell you something." The seriousness in his tone made her stomach tighten. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's actually really right, which is why—" He took a breath. "My company wants me back in Seattle by the end of the week. There's a project launch, investor meetings. I've been putting them off, but I can't anymore." The words hit like cold water. Charlotte had known this was temporary, but hearing it made it real. "Of course. Your car's almost fixed anyway." "Charlotte," he caught her hand. "Come with me." She stared at him. "What?" "Come to Seattle, even just for a visit. See my world, meet my colleagues. Let me show you that there could be a place for you there." His words tumbled out urgently. "You could consult for automotive companies, design custom systems, anything you want. Your talents are wasted in a small-town shop." Charlotte pulled her hand back, something cold settling in her chest. "Wasted? That's not what I meant, isn't it?" She stood, her voice hardening. "You think what I do doesn't matter because it's not prestigious enough? Because I work with regular people instead of millionaires?" "No, I just meant you could have more opportunities, reach your full potential." "My full potential?" Charlotte's eyes flashed. "You sound just like everyone else who thinks small-town life is something to escape from, that we're all just waiting for someone from the big city to rescue us." Ethan stood too, frustration creeping into his voice. "That's not fair. I'm trying to find a way for us to be together. Would you rather I just leave and we never see each other again?" "Maybe that would be simpler." The words came out sharper than she intended. "This was always temporary, Ethan. You get your car fixed, go back to your real life, and I stay here doing work that apparently doesn't matter." "I never said—" His phone rang, cutting him off. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. "I have to take this. It's my boss." Charlotte used the interruption to grab her clothes from the bathroom. As she dressed, she heard fragments of Ethan's conversation. Technical jargon, project deadlines, corporate pressure. This was his reality. Not diners and late-night conversations, but conference calls and expectations she couldn't begin to understand. When she emerged, Ethan was off the phone, his expression strained. "That was about the launch. They're moving it up. I need to leave tomorrow, not Friday." "Then you should go." Charlotte kept her voice level, professional. "Your car is ready by this afternoon. I'll have it delivered to your hotel." "Charlotte, please! Let's talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. This was nice, Ethan. Really nice. But we both knew it had an expiration date. Good luck with your launch." "Don't do this," his voice cracked. "Don't run because you're scared." Charlotte turned, anger and hurt warring in her chest. "I'm not running. I'm being realistic. You have your life. I have mine. Last night it was beautiful. But it was also a fantasy. We don't fit, Ethan. We never did." She left before he could respond, practically running to the elevator. Only when she was in her truck, driving back to the shop, did she let the tears fall. Back at the shop, Charlotte threw herself into work with fierce determination. She finished Ethan's car by early afternoon, testing every system twice, making sure it was perfect. Because that's what she did. She fixed things and sent them on their way. Her assistant, Marcus, watched her with concern. "You okay, boss?" "Fine, just tired." "Right, and I'm the Pope." He leaned against the workbench. "Want to talk about the guy with the fancy car?" "Nothing to talk about. He's leaving down tomorrow." "And you're just okay with that?" Charlotte slammed a wrench down harder than necessary. "What choice do I have, Marcus? Follow him to Seattle? Abandon the shop? Abandon everything Dad built for a guy I've known less than a week?" "Maybe not abandon, but maybe consider that there's more than one way to honor your dad's legacy." Before Charlotte could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Lauren, Ethan's ex. We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop on Main in an hour. It's important." Charlotte's blood ran cold. She showed Marcus the message. "That's weird. Really weird. Should I go?" "Probably not.
But you will anyway because you need to know what she wants. He was right. An hour later, Charlotte sat across from a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer clothes, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," Lauren said, her voice smooth as silk. "I wanted to warn you about Ethan." "Warn me?" "He does this. Finds someone sweet and simple, gets intense fast, makes promises. But when reality hits, when work gets demanding, or his family disapproves, he retreats. He'll go back to Seattle, throw himself into his projects, and you'll become a nice memory." Charlotte's stomach churned. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I was you once. Different circumstances, but the same pattern. Ethan wants to believe he can be different, that he can have a life outside his ambitions, but he can't. His work is his identity. Everything else is secondary." Lauren leaned forward. "He called me yesterday. Did he tell you that?" "No." The word came out as a whisper. "We talked about the launch, about his future at the company. He asked my advice. Professionally, of course." "But Charlotte, if he was serious about you, why would he be calling his ex-girlfriend about career decisions?" The question hung in the air like poison. Lauren stood up, touching Charlotte's shoulder with practiced sympathy. "I'm sorry. I just thought you should know what you're getting into before you get hurt." After Lauren left, Charlotte sat frozen, her coffee untouched. Everything the woman said made horrible sense. Ethan was intense. He did live for his work, and he had been vague about how they'd make things work. Maybe Lauren was right. Maybe this was just a pattern, and Charlotte was just another chapter in Ethan Williams' story of trying and failing to be someone he wasn't. Her phone buzzed again. "Ethan, your car is perfect. Thank you for everything. Can we please talk before I leave?" Charlotte stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "Car's fixed. Invoices at the front desk. Safe travels." She turned off her phone and walked back to the shop, her heart breaking with every step.
The unlock. Ethan stood in his hotel room, staring at Charlotte's cold, professional text. He'd spent the afternoon calling her, leaving voicemails, even driving to the shop only to be told by Marcus that she'd gone home and didn't want to be disturbed. Something had changed between morning and afternoon, and he couldn't figure out what. His phone rang, his mother. "Ethan, darling, I heard you're coming back tomorrow. Your father and I would love to have dinner when you return. There's someone we'd like you to meet. Catherine Ashford's daughter. Do you remember her? She's doing wonderful things in biotechnology." Ethan barely listened as his mother continued her familiar matchmaking routine. This was his life, orchestrated, expected, controlled. And for the first time, he hated it. "Mom, I have to go." He hung up mid-sentence and grabbed his keys. 20 minutes later, he was pounding on the door of Charlotte's apartment. When she finally opened it, her eyes were red-rimmed, and his heart cracked. "What do you want, Ethan?" "To know what happened. This morning we were... and then suddenly you won't even talk to me." "I talked to Lauren." The name hit like a punch. "What? Why would Lauren?" "She found me, warned me about you, about your pattern of getting intense with women and then disappearing when real life intrudes." Charlotte's voice shook. "She said you called her yesterday. Is that true?" Ethan closed his eyes, understanding flooding in. "Yes, I called her. About a legal issue with one of my patents. She's an IP lawyer, Charlotte. It was a 5-minute professional call. She said you asked her advice about your future. About a contract dispute, not about..." He stepped closer. "Charlotte, Lauren and I have been over for 2 years. Whatever she told you, whatever poison she dripped in your ear, it's not the truth." "Then what is the truth?" Charlotte's voice broke. "Because I don't know anymore. You talk about me coming to Seattle, but you haven't thought about how that would actually work. You say my work matters, but you also think I'm wasting my potential here. You want me to fit into your world, but have you considered fitting into mine?" "Yes!" The word burst out of him. "Charlotte, I've thought about nothing else. Why do you think I've been stalling my company? I've been trying to figure out how to make this work because the idea of leaving you is unbearable."
But you're still leaving tomorrow. Because I have to. I have contractual obligations, people depending on me. But that doesn't mean... I ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. Charlotte, I can't quit my job and move here after knowing you for 4 days. That's insane. But I also can't pretend that what we have isn't real and worth fighting for. Then what do we do? She whispered. He took her hands, forcing her to look at him. We be honest. We be brave. I go back tomorrow, handle the launch, and then I come back next weekend. And the weekend after that. We do long distance for a while. We figure it out as we go, without guarantees or perfect plans. That sounds hard. It will be. But Charlotte, you unlocked something in me I didn't know was locked. You made me remember why I loved engineering in the first place. Not for the prestige, but for the problem solving, the hands-on creation, the reality of making things work. You see me, really see me, in a way no one else does. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm scared. What if Lauren is right? What if you go back and realize I don't fit into your life? What if you're wrong? What if we're perfect for each other and the only thing stopping us is fear? He wiped her tears with his thumbs. I called my boss today, told him I'm cutting back my travel schedule, that I want to focus on hands-on projects instead of just design work. He wasn't thrilled, but he agreed. Charlotte, I'm already changing my life because of you. You shouldn't change for me. I'm not. I'm changing for me. You just helped me realize what I actually wanted. He pressed his forehead to hers. I can't promise this will be easy. I can't promise we won't fight or struggle or have moments of doubt. But I can promise I'll show up. I'll do the work. I'll fight for us, if you will. Charlotte closed her eyes, feeling the last of her walls crumbling. I'm terrified. Me too. Terrified and hopeful and more alive than I felt in years. He pulled back to look at her. So, what do you say? Do we take this risk together? She thought of her father, of his advice that the best things in life were worth fighting for. She thought of Lauren's warnings and her own fears. And then she thought of Ethan's laugh, his vulnerability, the way he looked at her like she hung the stars. Yes, she breathed. Yes, we fight for this. Ethan kissed her then, deep and promising, sealing the commitment they just made. When they broke apart, both were crying and laughing simultaneously. I have to leave at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Come with me to the airport? Charlotte nodded. I'll bring coffee. They spent the rest of the evening wrapped up in each other, talking about logistics and dreams, making plans for his return visit, promising video calls and text messages, and whatever it took to bridge the distance. As dawn broke, Charlotte drove Ethan to the airport in his newly repaired car. At the departure curb, he kissed her one more time. 2 weeks, he promised. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll be here, covered in grease, probably arguing with an engine. Perfect, he grinned. That's exactly how I want you. Charlotte watched him walk into the terminal, her heart aching and soaring at once. As she drove back home, she called Marcus. I need you to cover the shop next month. Why? What's happening next month? I'm going to Seattle. Time to see if a simple mechanic can navigate the big city. She smiled through tears. Turns out I'm braver than I thought. Epilogue. 6 months later, Charlotte stood in the garage of Ethan's Seattle home, a space he'd converted specifically for her. Tools lined the walls, a lift dominated the center, and currently, they were both under the hood of his latest prototype. Hand me the torque wrench, Charlotte said. Ethan complied, then leaned over to kiss her grease-smudged cheek. You know what? What? I think we unlocked something pretty special. Charlotte looked up at the man who dared her to solve more than just an engine problem, who challenged her to risk her heart. She'd kept the shop. Marcus ran it during the weeks she spent in Seattle, and she returned regularly to handle complex repairs and maintain her father's legacy. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Yeah, she agreed, kissing him back. Together, they returned to the engine. Two people from different worlds who had discovered that love, like any good machine, just needed the right combination of parts, patience, and someone willing to do the work. The end.